Let's record it. Right then. Excuse the beer, a long day. Right then, so this is what I love about photography. Every day is a school day, and this video is going to be all about why I just don't seem to get on with HDR photography. I always worry about it. It's not that it's a phenomenal tool, and if your dynamic range is ridiculous, so you've got a really bright sky, really dark foreground, and you can't use a filter because there's a shape or something going through the scene, it just means you've got no choice. It's either that or you push the life out of your sensor when you get back and edit it in post. So yeah, HDR photography and HDR, the capabilities just mean that you get a really, really nice image sometimes. I have a bit of a disliking for HDR images. I think if they look HDR, I just instantly even my own images, I just don't like them, and I've struggled on many occasions with editing HDR images. So where possible, I always avoid doing HDR photography. So this video was going to be all about why I just don't get on with HDR photography. But the whole point of me going out and doing this video was to prove that. In actual fact, when I came back and I tried a different editing method, yeah, I won't ruin the video, but the results are quite interesting for me. So apologies for the audio, it was horrendous weather. So I hope you enjoy the video anyway. I'll see you after. Oh wow, this is beautiful. I don't even know if you can hear me because it's blowing a gale, and I expect this little tripod to go over because it's tiny. It's ridiculous. A place I've always wanted to visit, Llanddwyn Island Lighthouse. Very popular photography location in North Wales. Got to be one of the prettiest viewpoints in North Wales. It's absolutely stunning, and I'm ashamed to say, even though I live in Wales, I've never actually been here before, so this is the first time I've ever seen it. Never mind photograph it. Yeah, got really excited when I looked at the weather. I thought, do you know what, this weekend looks like it might be a bit of a belter, so I made the effort. Me and the missus and the dog and Ellis, baby, came down for the weekend. It's been a couple of days in Snowdonia, so yeah, I'm really worried about this wind. But yeah, it's always going to be one of the places that's really chock-a-block with people. There's I can see 5 photographers behind me, and these two guys, that's Gareth on the left there, so yeah, there's 2 guys here. Yeah, it's kind of one of them locations you've got to get. I mean, there's a lot of sort of honeypot locations, you call them, that you've just got to get, and a lot of people probably put off with this location because it's really over photographed. Try and shield that wind off. But I really wanted this photograph, and my friend who's actually down here, Gareth here somewhere, he's with me, I don't know where he's gone, and he's got a fantastic astro shot of this. I'll see if he'll let me put that up. But it's a fantastic photograph, fantastic landscape location for this for landscape photography. So yeah, really pleased to be here. It's extremely difficult to shoot. I'm finding the actual shot difficult to balance because I've taken some landscape shots, having the lighthouse, focus on the lighthouse on the top right hand third. And it balances nicely there, having this nice group of rocks in the bottom left hand corner, but there's a bit in the middle which I don't know if I like, and because there's other photographers here, I can't go closer to it and use a wide angle lens to sort of get closer to the foreground rock and try and hide that gap, because I'd be in the way of the other photographers. So it's a bit frustrating, but yeah, I think I've got some nice images. The light isn't catching the side of the lighthouse, the sun is setting just to the right of it, and I thought today would be perfect to get some side lights on the side of the lighthouse. Sky looks okay, not much drama in the sky, but it's okay. Polarizer, f11. I've upped the ISO though because I didn't want the shutter to be too slow. Normally keep the ISO as low as possible, 160 on the Fuji X-T3. But on this one I've put the ISO to about 400, I've gone from about 160 to 400 just to see if I can keep the shutter speed as close to about 50th as possible. And of course I'm bracketed because the sky is extremely bright and the foreground is extremely flat and grey. So to expose for the foreground, I'm probably only going to use 2 of the images, but I'm probably going to do, it's a 3-stop bracket basically. Just keeping an eye on the histogram, making sure that my histogram is pushed as far to the right as I possibly can go without losing any clipping in the sky. The sun's not in the shot, so the histogram shouldn't be a problem. But I use this live view thing on the back of the Fuji to toggle between the natural live view, which is almost like what the RAW file would be like, and then you press it again, it'll be to the JPEG. Now the JPEG always worries me because when you press play, you always see a JPEG preview. So your histogram that you see when you press play is misleading because that's not the RAW. So I use the natural live view on the Fuji, which is really helpful, but then when you press play it looks like you've clipped all the photographs. But yeah, it should have got some nice ones. I've underexposed by about 1/3 of a stop just to make sure I've got some leeway, and obviously I've got the 3-stop bracket, so it should be okay. That's better. Got the place to ourselves. Finally found the other Gareth as well. That's Gareth mine. I'll ask his permission now, see if he'll let me put that mega astro shot up and show you that. It's absolutely fantastic shot. Very envious of that. So yeah, if you ever want some astro photography lessons, he's in North Wales. Yeah, really, I've worked the composition, I've had a look around. I'm struggling a little bit. Let me lift that up. It's just not working, is it? It's just not working. I'm struggling a little bit. I've gone for the landscape image. I thought I was going to prefer the portrait image, but looking at it, it was too much space in the sky, too much space in the foreground, which I didn't like. So I thought I was pretty much going to end up with a square image, or a 5:4 image. I'm not really going to want that. So I've decided to put the camera back landscape. The sun has just set, so if it's going to happen, it's going to happen now. So I'm staying. I'm in this amazing location, and I'm not budging until that sky lights up. But yeah, the dynamic range is just phenomenal because it's just so dark in the foreground, so bright in the background. It is a difficult shot, and I'm not a fan of HDR images. I really don't. I never think they look right. I think if you get it in one shot, it's always better. I just don't like HDR images. So always worry about merging them together so that they look genuine. I don't really like them looking HDR at all. Yeah, really nice composition though, because this massive rock in the foreground really points in nicely from the bottom left-hand corner. It's really nice. So pushing, I've spread the legs of the tripod as well. Now the other guys have gone, I've actually got a bit more space until the other Gareth turned up. Oh, he's gone again. So yeah, I've put the tripod really wide because it's really long, really windy, and I wanted to get an f11 shot focused at infinity, which is at the other lighthouse down there, just to make sure I had the depth of field. And then because of the crop sensor Fuji, you get that focus in the foreground as well at f11. I don't have to focus that because that is about 5 meters away from the camera, so that will be fine. That'll be nice and sharp at f11. So yeah, nice widespread legs on the tripod. Keep it because it's flipping windy. If this audio comes out, I'll be amazed. My dog looks happier now. You alright? I said it was windy, didn't I? Flipping heck. Sorry about the audio, it's dreadful, I know. But yeah, Llanddwyn Island, if you've not been, or Llanddwyn Island, don't know. Anyway, if you haven't been, fantastic place in Anglesey. You can spend all day photographing. What a view, I loved it. It was so pretty. Then mountains in the background as well, and the lighthouse in the foreground, really lovely. And yeah, an amazing photograph from Gareth Mon as well, that astro shot. Very envious of that. I'm gonna have to get up there when the season comes back and get the Milky Way as well. So yeah, looking forward to that. I shall return. So anyway, I've got the 3 exposures. I've obviously got the base exposure, which if we look at the histogram here in Lightroom, the base exposure push as far to the right as I can possibly go. So you can see literally there's no sun in the sky, so there's very fraction on the right hand side there. What was important, as I mentioned in the video, I wanted to try and keep the shutter speed up quite high, so I was conscious of that because of the wind. It was absolutely atrocious. So and at this point I actually chose one of the images earlier on because it had a better cloud formation in the sky, and the sun was catching the cloud. So yeah, this is one of the earlier shots. f11, 50th of a second is the base exposure, and yeah, so it's really dark foreground. So there's the base, obviously clipping the sky but getting all the detail there in the foreground. Get rid of that, getting all the detail there in the foreground, and then obviously a dark exposure for the sky, which ultimately I don't think we need because we're going to have all that information in that there anyway. But what we'll do is we'll merge the 3 images together. But what I'm actually going to do is something different. What I normally do is just merge the 3 images together and just edit the HDR image. But what I'm actually going to do is edit the base image, which is this one, and then try and just basically copy that information over to the HDR version as well. So you've got the quality of the 3 images combined, the dynamic range of all 3 images, but you'll have the natural kind of look from the base image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these 3 images now in HDR, so just create that HDR. Right, so we've got the base image there, the exposed image, overexposed, the dark one there, and then the HDR DNG file there as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to edit this one initially. So I'm going to change the settings very, very quickly just to get a basic idea. So obviously change the profile there. Adobe Landscape is quite a nice one for a really, really contrasty scene. I don't tend to use the Fuji ones for that because they're too heavy on the blacks. What we can do is hold Alt there and just push the exposure up a little bit until we start getting near. I think I'll just go to about stop. I'm still not clipping there, but 1.2. Okay, so that's just about 1.2 stops. So you can see we're getting some detail in the foreground now. Won't touch the contrast obviously because it's far too heavy. Highlights, we'll come back to that I think. Lift the shadows right up though, because obviously we need to see as much detail as possible. It's really impressive what you get out of these sensors these days, isn't it? I mean, that's incredible. Let's go about there. See, to me that looks a natural image. You know it's a very, very high dynamic scene. It's incredibly bright sky with a very, very dark foreground. So, but to me that is, let's just lift them whites just a little bit, because then I think I can see the whites touching. Oh, it's clipping there now. So just go as far before. There you go. That red. See the red clipping area in the top right hand of the screen. So we can only add about 10 to the whites. So the blacks, I don't think I'll touch that just yet. Although we've got the blinkies on the blacks, we can go down, starting to clip the blacks there. So that's about right. -7 on the blacks is all we can do. I like it. Still looks quite natural. Obviously, knowing that it's the very, very bright scene, you're starting to get an idea that if I push them shadows any more to get that sort of thing, then drop the highlights. That's the sort of image I absolutely can't stand. I just find that difficult to sort of accept, because you know it wouldn't have been like that. So let's bring the highlights back up a touch. I'm not really going to touch them much at all, to be honest with you, and bring the shadows right back down to where they were, which I think from memory is about 60. So leave it there. Okay, texture, a new one on Lightroom. Still trying to get used to what it is and what it does. But from what I understand, it's better than using the clarity, especially on the Fuji files. So with clarity, we'll only ever go to about 10. Now, dehaze is something I'll use one way, have a look at it, and use the other way, have a look at it, and see where it needs to be. Because quite often, it ruins an image, so I don't think I need it on this one. Alright, okay. Don't think I need it on that one. Vibrance, I will put that about 10, as with saturation as well. Saturation I wouldn't be touching at all on one of the Fuji profiles, but I would on the Adobe profile. So the white balance is the only thing I think I need to change immediately now. I think the white balance is still a bit cold. I remember it being a lot warmer. In fact, I feel like it needs to go about there. 5, 6. So that's a really, really nice balanced exposure, not crazy with the HDR look. And obviously this is a single shot, this isn't a HDR, but you can, because it's a single shot, and because I know that the foreground isn't too obviously lifted, it looks like a kind of genuine shot. So obviously with that, and then you could just add a grad to the sky there now, and just to bring that down a little bit. But we won't bother with the just delete the whole thing. We won't bother with the grad. I'll delete the grad because we're not going to be editing this picture as such. What I wanted to do is just basically show you that by using a single image as opposed to using the HDR to get like the nice tones. And then when I edit the HDR now, if I copy that information over to HDR, so copy literally everything. I actually don't think I've cropped it yet, have I? No, let's crop it. I did like the composition actually. I think I got it pretty much bang on in camera. I need to pull it in a little bit. I don't want to lose this area of cloud there. That's really, really nice. Then wisps of cloud. But I like the way that the lighthouse is shown to be. Let's move it over this way a touch. So this rock here on the left hand side is a bit distracting for me now, but never mind. Kind of needs, yeah. Kind of needs to be about there. So we'll leave it there. What crop is that? It needs to be about a 5:7 crop. 5:7 crop. Can't really get much of the land in there. Let's leave it there. Okay, so let's copy that information, all that, including the crop, over to the HDR version. Paste that onto the HDR version. Okay, so we'll get rid of the other two files, and we've just left with the base exposure, which is this one, which is the 50th of a second f11 ISO 250, and we've got the HDR version, which is almost identical, and I think just by editing it that way, I feel that I've got a more genuine, honest, balanced exposure. It doesn't look too fake. It doesn't look like it's a HDR image. Obviously, if I wanted to, I could push the life out of these shadows and make what some people would call a, there's nothing wrong with it, but to me, because it looks HDR, I just can't get past that. And once I think I know the image is HDR, I start looking for evidence of it. Not that there's anything wrong with HDR, I just think that if it's edited tastefully, it can be done really, really well. I don't think I'm particularly good at it because I avoid HDR so much. I just don't think I'm particularly good at it. But I do like this this edit now. I think it's nicely balanced. I don't think it looks. Let's just look at that contrast a little bit. Just give it a bit of pop. I don't think it looks like a HDR image. I think you'd believe that was a single shot, mainly because I know that it's exactly the same as the single shot, I suppose. But I don't think it looks like HDR image. So let's scroll down and see what else we need to do. So I'm not going to touch the saturation anymore. I might add an S curve to this, just very slightly. Just drop the blacks a little bit, just to give it a bit more pop. I think I'll lift the oranges because there's some lovely colour in that rock on the foreground there, in the bottom left. A lovely orange there. I might lift the yellows as well. That might help the sky too. There's a bit of glare there and there, which I might get rid of in Photoshop. Sharpening, that's my default sharpening in Lightroom, so I'm not bothered about that for this purpose. I would normally get rid of that altogether and sharpen it either in Photoshop or when I export it in this section here. I normally export the that bit with the sharpening, so I normally take that off, but we'll leave that for now. Enable profile connections, just get rid of any errors in the lens, which is already built in, and that is pretty much it. I'm not going to touch anything else. So yeah, it looks a bit heavy on the blacks now for some reason. Let's lift the blacks up a touch. Looks like it's gone a bit heavy on the blacks. The contrast probably too high as well. Let's have a look, see what we're clipping. I'm not clipping anything. Okay, alright. So it does look natural, but I don't know, on my screen it does look a bit heavy. So you've noticed I actually put quite a lot of white around the image, and I found that it's easier to sort of see the sort of contrast and the colour a bit better. I found that when I was using a sort of fit thing there, it was I suppose it's okay. I just like it with a white border around it, but yeah, that's fine. It's fine. Right, okay. What else am I going to do? I don't think I need to do anything. The only thing I'm going to do, I think, is stick it in Photoshop and get rid of these patches here. What I don't like, and is really distracting if I printed this, is this area here where the grass has gone sort of worn away. So what I'd probably do is replace that, probably try and Photoshop that patch out there and down here a little bit. I'm not too bothered about this bit here, but that's that big area there in the middle, which I really don't like. I wish I could get the camera over to the left, because it dipped down a bank. You couldn't really, but I just don't like this area here. I think your eye kind of follows the rock down, hits that path there, which isn't particularly nice, then goes up here. But yeah, the only other thing I noticed, there's a little bit of rubbish there I suppose I've got to get rid of, is the lighthouse itself doesn't look particularly nice because it's not that white, so I'd probably mask that out and lift them levels a little bit in Photoshop. I don't find doing things like that particularly good in Lightroom, so I'll do that in Photoshop. I think the only thing I probably should do is stick if it'll let me, is stick a grad over the sky, just a touch, just to drop the highlights down a little bit. And what I'll do as well, add the clarity to the grad, a little bit of that, just to make them clouds pop. So you can see them clouds popping. Include them a bit more into the photograph. But again, it needs to look natural, almost like it's been done with a filter as opposed to HDR. But yeah, that looks quite natural. I could do a mask using a colour mask or something on here, just going around the the lighthouse a little bit, but I won't bother with that now. I think what we'll do is just keep it simple for now. Keep it simple, or I might add another grad actually to the top right, just to bring that area down a touch, but not quite as strong. That'll do. Yeah, so that balances the exposure. So yeah, we're going to chuck that in Photoshop now. I'm going to have a look at the this area here. That'll probably take me a few minutes. I won't expect you to sit through that. And I'll show you the finished image. It still looks a bit heavy in the middle. It looks a bit heavy with contrast. I don't quite understand why that is. I think it's just because it was so dark, and that's probably just part of the natural looking aspect of the non-HDR approach, I guess. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if we drop that down there, yeah, let's go to 70 then. Compromise, go to 70, and let's have a look one more time at the exposure. I can press Alt now, lift the exposure just to see. And we're not going to clip for a while. We are not going. We got miles before we clip. We go way up there, but I won't go up there. I want to keep it looking balanced. Okay, so what's 1.4. There it is, 1.4. Nice, honest, balanced HDR image. Wouldn't say I'm unhappy with that at all. I think it looks like an honest HDR image. Honest single shot image, actually. Doesn't look like an HDR image. I think that's basically what I've taken from this entire trip. That I don't really need to be afraid of using HDR, because I always dread there's so many photographs I've probably taken over the years that I've just not even put together, because I've had one or two images where I've taken them and the editing it just looks HDR, and I think if it's done subtly and it's not too obvious, you get away with it. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I won't ramble on anymore. Yeah, I'll show you the finished edited video, the finished edited photograph at the end with all the bits of grass cleared up and stuff. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been really, really good fun to sit and edit this with you. Yeah, let me know if you've got any tips at all on how I could do better HDR edited photographs. I'd be more than up for that. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe, drop me a comment in the bottom, and hit the thumbs up button. That'd be great. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.